All right, good afternoon, everybody. Wow, that's loud. I'm loud anyway, we might have a problem. I'm Genevieve Delrosario. I'm an assistant professor at St. Louis University in St. Louis, Missouri. My co-presenter is Dr. Chris Werner, also on faculty at St. Louis University. And we would like to thank you deeply for choosing this session over a nap. It's 1 o'clock. I know what that means for my students. I never schedule 1 p.m. lectures, so we are grateful. If you are somebody who can multitask and attend this session and take a nap at the same time, power to you. We won't be offended. Anyway, thanks for coming. If you are looking for a serious session, please go somewhere else. So today we want to talk about 3 things. First of all, we're just going to talk about what are different games that you can play with your students in the classroom. 2, what's the evidence? We go in the classroom, we teach, but the second principle of education is the research, the scholarship. How do games stack up? What does the literature say? Are games actually a good thing to do? And finally, I am all about the practical. We want you to go home and say, hey, I could really easily play this game or this game or this game or this game. So hopefully you get all of that out of today. Oops. Hopefully I'll learn to use the clicker too. So first a word on terminology. When you look in the literature for this, what you really find is the term serious games. Now, when I started preparing this lecture, I really had never heard that before. And the term you often hear bandied about is edutainment. But a serious game at its most basic level is any game that was developed for a reason beyond just having fun. The folks who do their research, who spend their careers on serious games, are not particularly fond of the term edutainment. And there's a lot of really conflict and divisiveness, if you will, about this. Now, if you didn't have the chance to hear Betty Copeland's really excellent session this morning on edutainment, go to tomorrow's, because it's very, very good. And one thing she talks about is how people are like, oh, I'm not an edutainer, I'm a teacher. I'm a teacher. Betty, I just called you out and you missed it. You shouldn't be late. And that point is very valid, and I think it gets into the language around this. And that's, I think, one reason that folks who research serious games for a living are really a little less prone to use that term. We're also finally going to talk about spaced education. Spaced education is a term increasingly used with online education, and a lot of times what you look at are you send a student a case, they get back to it, and then you get immediate feedback, and then there's another case over time. This is a great, great thing. If we are not using apps, if we are not using computers, if we're not integrating this technology in our classroom, we are so far behind our students that we really do need to tell them about how we walk to school, uphill, in the snow, both ways, right? So why games? You can use them as an icebreaker. My 5th grader uses these as an icebreaker. It's easy, it's a great thing to do as you start the program. You know, you can do the 2 truths and a lie, you can do the scavenger hunt. There are a million things you can do. But what we're really going to talk about today is the ones that teach us. And I think you can use games really well and very effectively to teach, reinforce, and assess medical knowledge. What we've used very commonly at St. Louis University is we do it for reinforcement. I don't think I've ever given a final exam that didn't include Jeopardy, that didn't include some sort of game. It's a wonderful way the students know what they know. They're like, ooh, that might be on the test. So they are really paying attention. And jumping down a little bit, I don't know about y'all students, mine are crazy competitive. I always have like a $10 gift bag from Target. You know, you go to the dollar section at Target. I have that as a prize. Almost every game I lift it up, I'm like, guys, calm down. This can be yours too for a mere $10 from Target. So they get very, very involved. I think another term, it really does help, at least in our anecdotal experience, increase student satisfaction. As I said at the beginning, it's 1 o'clock, it's a lecture, nobody wants to be here. And again, Betty, I'm stealing from your lecture, but it reminded me, you know, this spring I was giving my lecture on constipation for the 7th time. It is not a moving topic, y'all, if you'll excuse my saying so. And I had the exact same thought that was brought up today. I'm like, if I am bored out of my mind giving this lecture, I have got to change something. I need to make this interactive. It increases satisfaction. It increases that interactive learning. I mean, we all talk about the flipped classroom, the fact that adult learners like to be interactive. So students really do well, and they do learn better when they're engaged in the process. Games are a great way to do this. It's good for team building, and again, once again, active learning, active learning, active learning. Y'all are engaged, but if I sit up here for the next 49 minutes and continue to drone on, you're going to remember this lecture as well as I remember lectures from 6 years ago. You're like, oh, right? So we need to break it up. What can you play? So I've got on here bingo. And the first time I ever played bingo or thought about playing bingo, I'm like, okay, my 3-year-old loves bingo, where he's all about it. We really don't need this for PA students. That was before I taught neurology. And I took the class from a colleague, and I was looking at the intro, and it had pages and pages of slides on definitions. And I thought, kill me now. I'm not going to sit up here and go, caudal is blah, blah, blah. So what I did is we played bingo. Now, I didn't read the words. I read the definitions. They had to find those words on the cards. So they were looking there. They were actively thinking, wait, does this mean this? Does this mean this? By the way, if you're going to do that, don't use markers, use M&Ms. And don't use M&Ms, use pretzel M&Ms. I think my teacher evaluations were best this year because of pretzel M&Ms. Had nothing to do with me. So a great way to do it, and there are numerous online apps. You can find them. We've got one at the end that will make the cards for you. You put in the terms, the online programs will make your bingo cards. Super easy, takes about 20 minutes, and then you get a work study to finish it off. So when you're worried about the time, don't. Word puzzles, crossword puzzles, there's a lot of stuff in the literature about pharmacy programs using crossword puzzles, which makes a lot of sense for the very same reason that the bingo game does, right? Give them the definition, give them ideas. There are so many ways you could go with this to have an interactive experience that they can do at home, and you don't have to sit up there and go on about your definitions for an hour. Jeopardy, super easy. We'll play it later in the game. Easy, 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 easy peasy, mac and cheesy, as my kids say. Lots of templates online where you can find this. Great thing to do. Card sorting we'll talk about in a few minutes. Family Feud is a new one I found. We'll also try out that one. St. Louis is known for the Cardinals, although we might not want to talk about that today. We are known for Budweiser. It's sort of a town of alcoholics. And we are known for trivia nights. People get crazy about trivia nights. So we will have trivia nights, and we'll let our student organization run it. They'll sell drinks to the people. The students have a great time, and it's a great way when you're looking at board prep. We'll just take questions from our database and just do board prep that way. There's Pyramid, also available online. Video games, we're not going to talk a lot about those today in great degree because I'm not particularly tech savvy. But again, this is a really evolving area we should be most into. And finally, if you don't have good ideas, ask your students. And don't just ask your students, give them extra credit. I was trying to think, okay, how can I make my student projects interesting? And I'm like, I am out of ideas. I am done. So what I said is, I will give up to 15 points extra credit on this 100-point project, which was worth like 5% of their final grade. So I think at most it influenced our grade by 0.7 or something like that. I had the best experiences. Instead of PowerPoints going blah, 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 I had students making videos of watching each other faint when their house got robbed. I had students doing Tourette's examples where there were little pictures on the slides, and if your picture came up, you had to jump up and make a funny sound or jump. I had all sorts of great ideas, and one student who has really sort of struggled socially in the program came up to me afterwards. He's like, was the best time I ever had in PA school. Thank you. So when you're out of ideas, go to them. We let them into our programs for a reason, right? Whoops. So, before I talk more, it's time to play Family Feud. I have a secret. I'm not Steve Harvey. Close your eyes, pretend. But we need a couple of people who know their immunizations. Come on. Okay, look. You don't want to come up. No, I hate to resort to bribery. It works for my 3-year-old, it works for my students, it will work for you. I have chocolate. Awesome. One more brave soul. I promise the questions are not terribly hard. Actually, you can go back up. Just do 2. So one gets like Chris, I'm going to ask you to be our arbitrator of who makes the vote first. All right. So the question, and this is available. Ladies, we have policies against academic dishonesty. All right. So, everyone familiar with Family Feud? The first person to ring the bell gets to answer the question. So, if you download the presentation from Indiana, and Indiana has happy to share this with everyone, this is what you get. Here's our question. Name, and you cannot answer the question until I'm done speaking. Students are terrible about that. Name 3 immunizations given at the 11-year-old well child exam. ACTRA, and survey says ACTRA. Go ahead. Keep going. Gardasil, correct. Okay, too long. We're going to pass. To you.
I was going to say the TDAP.
And the TDAP. Congratulations. So this is an easy game. You can download this in about 10 minutes and put your questions in. Easy to do. Have your students choose their families and have a ball. So where can you play? We play typically in the classroom, but there are certainly any number of emerging technologies that are interactive on computers and mobile apps. Why? It increases self-efficacy, problem solving. It's good review. It's really great review, and it's good for socialization. Again, it's fun. And sometimes we always say by the time our students finish get done with their 15 months of didactic, that classroom is small. It lets them get their aggressions out, and it lets them have a good time with each other. Extrinsic rewards include the achievement, you can do points, levels, reputation. I mean, students get really into this, and online, doctors get into this. And they did one program online for monitoring blood pressure, and it did fine, but when they included points and let you compete against other people, all of a sudden, scores got much, much better. So competition works. Prizes, and I will say in our experience, it doesn't really matter how good the prize is. I had a $100 gift certificate I could never, ever use that was really no more popular than the pumpkin hat from Target. So just kind of something for fun. It's a time cost. There's no question this is going to take time. And the question is it time well spent? I think so, because I will say along with the time cost is also the burnout cost. Along with my students have fun, I have never laughed so hard as I have laughed watching my students play these games. It really increases their engagement and reminds you why you went into teaching to begin. Financial expense. There are a million apps. There are a million things you can do out there. And in fact, our colleagues in the medical profession, the MDs, are way ahead of us, but they ain't cheap. So if we're going to do this, you need to decide what you want to spend. Evidence, Chris is going to speak about this in a minute. It's not great. It seems trending, maybe kind of positive, but it's not great. And that's actually another great niche for us. We need to get out there and say, hey, how does this stuff work? If you're like, I want to do research, but I don't know what, think about games. And then different learning styles. I typically make my reviews voluntary. You don't have to come. You have to come to everything else, but you can skip my review. And we always have a number of students who are, maybe they're sick of the classroom, maybe they don't want to play games, but it's not for everybody. Developing games. I think one of the things you want to do is you don't want to say, I want to play Jeopardy. How can I work that into my curriculum? But I think it's rather the opposite. You want to start with, what do I want to teach? How can I teach it? Which modality is going to work best? Evaluate, evaluate, evaluate. Right? We talk about this with our ARC-PA standards. We need to be talking about it with what we do. If I'm spending a lot of time making this game, I want to be darn sure my students are enjoying it, and ideally that it's giving me better educational outcomes. And then get feedback. We know that our students love to tell us what they think, right? We've all read our evaluations, sometimes with a glass of wine. Get that feedback earlier. Sit them down and say, hey, we played this game. What did you think? How was it? What could we do to make it better? Family Feud was actually an idea from a student of mine a couple years ago who's like, hey, I don't understand Durham. I'm going to make you Family Feud. Great. She never did. But it was a great idea. They'll come up with this stuff. But now let's move on. So that it's fun, it's entertaining, but how does it work? So Chris is going to speak to this.
Thank you, Genevieve. Can everyone hear me? Sorry. Okay. So I'm here to talk about the evidence, and I'm feeling kind of guilty because I put probably too many slides in, and I don't want everybody to fall asleep, but I understand because not everybody's into the research and the evidence. But typically, what does the evidence say about educational games? Is it worthwhile to implement in our curriculum? Does it help our students learn better, increase their knowledge, and of course the bottom line is, does it help them become better PAs for patient care? So if we just do a typical search, like here I just picked PubMed, entering in our various search terms of educational games, you actually come up with over 1,000 results of some type of study with either in the title or in the text about educational games. If you go ahead and apply some limits, like less than 5 years, human subjects, English, clinical trials, that number goes down to 70. And then if you want to just find randomized controlled trials, RCTs, there's only 53 in the literature as of a couple weeks ago. So do educational games work? I'm just going to go over a couple of studies that we thought were of interest and just highlight highlight the results of what they implemented for trying to research this concept of do educational games work. Akil et al. There's several. Let me just make a note. There's several systematic reviews. And this is one of them that came out in 2013. It's from the Cochrane database of systematic reviews. Their objective was to assess the effect of educational games, performance, knowledge, skills, patient outcomes. They looked at 10 different databases up to January 2012 and actually had a little bit over 1,600 citation hits. And because it is a systematic review, you have to have predetermined criteria. So they were looking for randomized controlled trials or a controlled clinical trial. They also wanted their criteria of these games that were implemented and published. Was there some type of analyses? Did they do a pre and post game scoring mechanism to try to quantify results? The game, it had to be a competitive activity or a sport played with rules. And what they found out of those 1,600 citations, there was 2 eligible studies identified. One was Family Feud on infectious control. Another was this board game called Snakes and Ladders, and that was on basic stroke prevention. There was no consistency of results, and the results were not statistically significant on knowledge and patient outcomes. This same group of researchers also a little bit earlier did another systematic review looking at the effect of educational games on medical students' learning outcomes. Again, a systematic review. They had similar objectives. Their methods, they used 9 databases up to January of 2007. The selection criteria was the same. The participants were medical students. And with these results, they had over 1,000 hits, citations. There was 26 potential eligible studies with only 5 eligible randomized controlled trials. All 5 of these trials were rated as low to moderate methodology quality. 3 out of the 5 of these RCTs also suggest but did not confirm a positive impact on outcomes. A different systematic review by Graflin et al., again, another systematic review, they looked at a serious game. And as Genevieve reviewed, a serious game, it's most commonly an interactive computer application. It's intended to improve a specific aspect of learning, either learning a skill or helping with decision making. There has to be a scoring mechanism, and the supplier, the user is provided with a case that increases their skills and knowledge as they play over time. And they want it to be as close to reality as possible, too. The game should be challenging. A serious game, it should be challenging so that the player keeps continuing to play, the participant keeps continuing to play it until the objectives are reached. Common examples of a serious game are they're used in emergency services, military training, and corporate education. So with this review, they used 5 databases up to April 2012. 25 articles were identified with a total of 30 serious games. They found with these results there was a large variation of study design. They couldn't really look at, apples and apples and pears. 6 of the games did have some type of process of validation. 3 of the games were designed for team training and critical care and triage. The other 3 games were commercial laparoscopic games to improve psychomotor skills. None of these games had a full validation process. And one more study, Graflin et al. Is again evaluated a serious game and how it was used with surgeons actually for clinical decision making for a surgery topic. And this author likes to look into biliary tract disease management. So they recruited 41 participants, surgeons, surgical residents, medical students, and they played this game, and then they were given a questionnaire at the end. So the results indicated 88 reported that the cases and the images of the game were realistic. Their scores did improve over time as they continued to play the game. Majority perceived the game as fun, yet it was challenging, and they would recommend it to their colleagues for participation. Now, a different sort of gaming methodology, we call it Q-sort methodology. It's also just like the card sorting game activity. How many here have played the card sorting game or have ever played a card sorting game? No one? Okay. So the Q-sort, and we're going to actually play a card sorting game here. It's very simple. I know it's considered low tech, but you can really put them together very quickly, and student engagement is just wonderful for it. With this study, with Mead et al., the authors of this study looked at playing Q-sorting game with their curriculum milestones, okay? So the way a card sorting game is, you set up headings, and usually it's no more than 4 or 5. You have major headings, and then there's either cards or some other type of data that the participant has to prioritize or put it down into that heading that they think it fits most appropriately. Okay, so what this study did, they took 250 faculty from 13 different residency programs to participate with 22 of their curriculum milestones. These milestones had to be prioritized based on medical competencies for readiness of indirect supervision. So, and I think it ran over a course of 8 or 9 months. The results, there was strong agreement among who felt the top 8 milestones that needed to be definitely implemented in the curriculum. There was dynamic discussion among faculty using this type of game, and the faculty were interested in applying this type of activity to other areas in their curriculum. So with that, at St. Louis University, we play a card sorting game for our gastroenterology module. And what you see here, here's our headings, if I can do this right. Okay, there we go. The headings are over here, and I suggest that if you do this in a course, pick your areas in the same system. So, like, since it's GI, we have like 4 colon diseases or diagnoses, or we have 4 liver diseases or 4 biliary diseases. So that way, the information it's challenging because your information, your little fact, might apply to more than one column. It's important to time this activity because otherwise the students will just end up looking up all the answers and making sure everything's correct. There can also be more than one answer, and it's okay to have the same bit of information on another card, okay? So with that, oops, sorry. How well do you know your PA education? We need 4 volunteers. Come on. Did I scare you? Come on. Come on, we need 2 more. So what we thought would be fun for us as educators, come on, don't be shy. Thank you. Yay. So we developed a card sorting activity. Oh, let me make one more comment. I'm sorry, I forgot to say. For the cards, it's data, it's information, and like the example I gave for GI, it can be a clinical presentation pearl, it can be prognosis, it can be etiology, it can be treatment, any type of little factual information that might fit most appropriately with one of those columns. Okay, so with that, we have 4 different time errors of PA history: 1650 to 1970, 1971 to 1990, 1991 to 2010, 2011 to present, and it's very important, and Genevieve, if you could hold it up, to always have a column of I don't know. Okay, I don't know. And it's okay, they might put a card over there for a while, and then, again, the whole impact is to discuss it among your, you should be working as a team to get these cards on your column as fast as possible. You have 3 minutes, and we're going to begin now. Come on, guys, let's root them on. Come on, we can do it. Come on, we can do it. So this is the information on the card that they have over there, okay? It's not in the order, of course, it's supposed to be for the answers. Yeah, you can go ahead and try to figure it out yourself. I'm looking at it. Time, Genevieve? Huh? Oh, okay. We got 45 seconds. 40 seconds. Oh, 2 minutes. 2 minutes left. We won't tell. I'm sorry? Okay. Shh. Okay, let's give a big hand to our card sorting participants. Yay! Yeah, in the interest of time, we'll move on, and we can put it up at the end if you need to see the answers. But I found all this information on the PA History website, put it together, and had a work study finish it up. Okay, just a couple more pieces of evidence. Kerfoot et al. Also evaluated an online spaced education game to teach and assess medical students. This was a multi-institutional prospective trial. They did evaluate their participants' pre- and post-game scores of the game using 100 validated multiple choice questions. The participants were medical students, 731 from 3 different medical schools over a 9-month period. The students were emailed 2 questions daily and for 9 months, and a question was retired if it was answered correctly twice. So the pregame score of these medical students was 53%. Upon completion of the game, the score was 93%, so much better, more improvement. There was no significant difference between scores of the year of the medical school student, so second year or fourth year student, there was no difference there of scores, and 73% requested that they wanted to play the game again. These same group of researchers also did an online spaced education game with clinicians, and their game involved treating a patient with blood pressure. So it was all about blood pressure control. There was about 110 clinicians that were randomized into 2 groups from 8 different hospitals. One group received the game with 32 validated multiple choice questions. One group received, they actually received identically the same information that the other group had in a question format, but it was just posted as like an online posting, and then they were to take the test at the end, the control group. And their results concluded that the game group had a modest but significant reduction in the time to reach blood pressure target goals among their hypertensive patients. So in summary, you can see there's a variety of educational games described. There's a variety of academic and clinical settings utilized, variety of participants utilized, lots on medical students. I didn't come across any original research study on PA students. There is a lack of validity assessment among the literature, but all of them do conclude that educational games may help in the learning process. So, with that.
All right, so it's time for another game. So we are all about games. I'm going to tell you something you never tell your students. If they're not already out, I want you to take out your cell phones. So this is, we actually use this in our endocrine module as part of our course review, and I chose this one because I really like the categories. It's raining men for multiple endocrine neoplasia, water everywhere, how stimulating for your stim tests, added up is all adrenal, and teacher's PET scan, and that's all different imaging modalities. So in the actual game, and like I said, these are available on multiple templates online. They all will take you, if you click on the number or click on the amount, it will take you to the question, and then an arrow will bring you back to the main page. In the interest of time, I chose a couple, so we're going to do added up for 20. So everybody have their cell phone? Okay. So this diagnosis should be suspected in a patient with moon phases, hypertension, weight gain, and hirsutism. Please text your question to my cell phone, 913-961-3962. First text I get wins, and remember, it's a question. Okay. I have one answer, but somebody has to check their autocorrect. It was crushing. So we have our answer, and this is from 708-751-9045. So, and the question, of course, is what? Excuse me, your she's out. So we're going to move on to 423-830-0447. Okay? And the question is, what is Cushing syndrome? Very. All right, so if you didn't get that, you still have a chance, although now my phone's going crazy. So one more question. Yeah, you are all correct, by the way. So this is going on to MEN for 100. I'm not expecting quite so many answers. So this is an unusual feature of the pheochromocytomas seen in MEN 2A and 2B. I'm just going to say, does anybody have this one? Our endocrine professor does. So this one is, just in case you're curious, they are bilateral. You tend to have 2 of them. So that's sort of an example of the breadth you can get in terms of how hard these questions are for your test. But this is lots of, okay. I'm just going to hold this for the rest of the time. Oh, wait, was that actually an answer? Did somebody get it? Or is it too late? Somebody said, what is strawberry? So I don't know. Again, autocorrect, y'all. I will say we don't use cell phones in class. What we typically use are those bells, although people get very argumentative about who rang in first. You can also, you can go to Toys R Us or Amazon or whatever and get buzzers that have different sounds. There's also an available Jeopardy game that you can buy for about $400. The problem with that, as we have found, because we did invest in that, is you have to have an old-fashioned TV to hook it up with. It doesn't work with a lot of the more modern technology. There might be a way around that, but we have not figured it out yet. So, perfect. That works as well. Great idea. So here are just some resources, and a lot of these I've put down, but honestly, the more common games, there are probably 30 different resources you can use, and if you just type in crossword puzzle, you'll get at it. But Jeopardy, you can buy it on Educational Insights or cheaper on Amazon. I should own stock on Amazon, but my disclaimer is I own stock in nothing. PowerPoint Jeopardy template, also available many places. Family Feud is available in a couple of places. I've really seen it through the Indiana University Center for Teaching Excellence. Create Your Own Bingo cards, available in many, many places as well. The game Pyramid, also online. Crossword puzzles, also online. And then Purpose Games is a website that allows you to make multiple different games. Worth checking out. Apps, I'm not going to go over all of these, but this is sort of a compilation of some of the better apps out here. And because I'm not one who really knows that, I went to the biggies and UCSF and Harvard and everyone. What do they say are the best medical apps? So here's a good list you can use, you can play with, you can share with your students. Just a few additional resources that might be useful. So at the end, this is fun. I hope you guys had fun. Nobody is asleep, so I am really impressed. But again, it's that active learning that we're all trying to move towards, I think, in our educational experiences. It's fun for us. It's fun for the students. In general, we're shifting online. PA educators, as a group, we're not quite there yet, and as a group, we can remediate that. That's something we can work on in the coming years. And finally, if you're wondering if it really works, we hope so. Again, evidence is weak, but probably so. So, thank you all very much. We'll open up to questions. Oh, and adding chocolate is always a plus, and if anyone needs chocolate, I have a whole bag I don't want to take back to St. Louis, so I'm happy to share. Yes, ma'am.
So when you're talking about some of these studies and the evidence being weak, I assume the outcome is the actual learning. And is it that the learning is worse or it's just not better?
These studies are given really
You want the mic?
solid design to measure that.
Okay. And some of them I saw that they measured, like, even if the learning was the same, I guess they didn't measure it, did the students like it?
Majority of the students liked it, agreed it was fun, and wanted to play it again. But as far as that it actually helped improve knowledge, like to be like tested 6 months down the road on the same information, like that, not done. So as far as solid research, doing a randomization process to have a control type of study, they're not there. It's not there, which is really surprising to me. So again, going back to the scholarship opportunity, I thought, oh my gosh, this is huge, for at least for us especially. We do not see very much implementation.
You know, I tried the Jeopardy game. They have YouTube videos that can literally walk you through the steps and
Mhm.
the PowerPoint was, so it was really quite easy. So if anyone wants to do it, what I did was in anatomy, I camtasiaed my lecture ahead of time so they listened to it at home, and then we came into the class and we did the Jeopardy.
That's great.
I still got a sense that they wanted me to spend that 1 hour going through my lecture again and almost redoing my lecture, which is sadly what I ended up doing with this year's class. I just got the sense that they felt that they could do those questions outside the classroom, and they wanted that in classroom, literally repeating practically the same lecture to reinforce it. So are you doing this? Are they doing the work outside the classroom and you're using this as a review? Is this in place of your actual quote-unquote lecture on GI? How are you incorporating?
You know, that's a great question. And I actually really feel like we're at a little bit of a pivotal point in education. I think we're leaving that lecture. But at the same time, I think our students, particularly our older students, are used to lecture. And so is there some resistance? Yeah, we've done a combination. You know, when I did the bingo, for example, I said, learn the vocab before you come to class. So it didn't take place in my lecture, but it took place of that part of my lecture. Did they actually study the vocab? I don't know. So I do think, and I think, like I was saying with the games, some students like it, some students don't. But I think in general, the interaction is probably the wave of the future. But sometimes
I
we're,
enjoyed the class much more doing the Jeopardy.
right,
I'm
right.
doing my entire lecture.
Right, but, and sometimes it's just, I think, changing expectations, right? You know, they expect this, and part of it is explaining that change. You know what? I can sit up here and lecture you for an hour, but do you know what? We're going to have a lot better time, and it's going to be more meaningful, and ideally, eventually, evidence is going to support the fact that if we do this together, you're going to learn more. So I think sometimes just explaining that rationale, which sometimes as teachers, we know what we are thinking, but we don't always share that with students. At least I'm guilty of that sometimes. And so I think that is helpful as well. But you're absolutely right.
And I just wanted to say with the GI course, we actually do it at the end of the course before finals. And we actually have like multiple layers, and we have like 2 classrooms going at one time, and the students switch tables to go to a different condition table, and they have to discuss it and agree and disagree why they thought certain cards were put somewhere, and then they switch and go to this other room that has 4 different diagnoses. So it's like a good review session before the finals.
I would just say that I think it's useful to mix the game up within the lecture, so that I can see, I'm gonna do that, family feud, but, you know, after you hit a certain point, a question on family feud, they don't know who you're gonna call on, and then you lecture for another 15 minutes, they're starting to fall asleep, you know, another question, just to mix it up, maybe.
It's a great thought. Sure.
I was going to say, one place I tried with Jeopardy is we did an analysis of where first year students did poorly on their ACTRA,
Mhm.
and I did an end of rotation, review your end of rotation exams on like ophthalmology.
Oh, wow. That's a great idea. Games as remediation. I like it.
Could you go back one slide and flip the
This one? Other questions or comments?
We've used the online game Play Spent, SPENT, to do some pottery simulation. You have to live on $1,000 per month, and it has random questions. So your students, and it's free. So you can have them do sort of a creative pre-quiz of what they feel about underserved, and what that's like, and then a post for having to. You can play the 30 days.
And that's a great idea. Our medical school actually does a similar, and they have it in a huge ballroom where you are given an identity and you're
They
given a
actually
fixed
do the
income.
true pottery simulation.
And that,
We've done that too.
yeah, that's a great thing to do.
Great.
But this is an online,
Right. Neat.
it's free.
Great. And play. What was
Play spent, SPENT.org.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much.
Nice to meet you. I